and overview of just what the benefits are of the technology that we found over the last year working with the different organizations, and then walk you through the actual workflow of how the technology works. So I thought that we could start there and then maybe open it up to questions. Does that sound like it's in line with what everyone was expecting?
Yep.
Perfect.
Sounds perfect. And Luke, just to let you know, I'm recording this, so if future people have questions or want to inquire, they can look at the recording.
Perfect. And so just you know, kind of one slide to kind of show how this came to be. The collective, the idea behind the collective was to unify all the different programs around one overarching goal, right? And because there were so many programs in Chattanooga that were in the middle of different initiatives, different efforts, what the collective tried to do is to bring them all together in one place. And then that led to them looking for technology to help scale the effort and have all of this experience on one platform to both help with collaboration and help with the onboarding and implementation of the mentor and mentee life cycles. So the tech requirements when they went out to search, and this is, you know, presented by the program manager at that time, Elizabeth Tallman, who basically they needed a platform that was safe and secure, that everyone could use, from mentees to mentors to the organizations and the staff themselves, that provided an option for continuous learning. So online learning content for training, to provide resources, etc. That supported collaboration amongst the different organizations, that was mobile friendly, meaning that there was a mobile app associated with it, and that on the back end, they can track and manage the engagement and data that came out of the effort. So LRM, I don't know if anyone has heard of LRM before, it means learning relationship management. So it's very similar to what customer relationship management, which CRM is, except it focuses on the relationship, on building, allowing people to get connected with coaches, with mentors, and with content across a learning experience. In this situation, we're talking about mentoring. And so the benefits of the LRM is the ability to personalize the onboarding for the youth, so the mentees that are involved, the mentors, and the staff that are managing the effort across the entire life cycle. The second piece is the community experience, and we'll go into it in more detail, but the idea that it's not just connecting a mentor to a mentee, but onboarding mentors and mentees to an overall community of users that have shared experiences, that are going through the similar processes, so they can make those organic connections, which improves retention over time. The third piece is what we call just-in-time content. So training and resources when mentees and mentors need it. You know, a lot of organizations will front load their training in the beginning of the mentoring relationship, but then it kind of over time, right? Mentors don't have access when they actually need those skills to be built. You know, whether it's within the mentoring relationship, as they're going through the mentor-mentee interaction. So our platform focuses on just-in-time content, recommending apps to students, to mentors when they need it to build those necessary skills. The fourth piece is the mobile communications, which I know was big for this conversation. It's the idea that students and mentors should be able to communicate via the mobile phones, especially for youth, right, who are predominantly not on a computer and they're mostly using their mobile device. And then the last piece is just the managing and tracking of that engagement. So to break this down a little bit more, the personalized onboarding piece, when we talk about that, it's how do you want to onboard each of the mentees and the mentors that are in these programs. So it starts in the beginning, right? Customize your screening process, customize the questions that you're asking when they first log in and fill out their profile, because you're collecting that data on the back end to then use it to do outreach and pull reports. Now, the content that you develop in the beginning allows you to personalize the onboarding experience, whether it's orienting them to the technology, orienting them to the program in general. But we'll talk about kind of like building apps in the initial stages so that the users already, without taking any time, have automatic apps added to their learning path that orienting them to the experience. And then the last piece is just there's a mentor-mentee coach. So someone needs to be overseeing the program in general and is initially connected with them as soon as they onboard, so that they can answer any kind of pending questions about the screening, about the connections, or about the next steps in getting them matched to their mentee. Now, for the community experience, once they log in and once they have created an account, they are added to the overall program community, but then also to the sub-communities that either for the specific organizations that they're working for the students, it would be their school. For mentors, it could be geographical groups created for peer support. But the idea behind the community experience is it provides that digital space around that shared interest or around that shared experience to connect with others, which is also, like we mentioned before, just like indicative of that retention over time. That includes community activity streams, access to other members, and then the announcements and events that go along with that community. The just-in-time content that we talk about, so when we think of an app, we're thinking of curated content that's available on the platform. So this could be anything from orientation, screening. We have programs in Chattanooga that had 3-hour orientations that now they're able to do it in a 5-minute app and then focus when they do the in-person orientation on the interactive activities or kind of like the personalized activities that they want to focus on with their mentors or mentees. So having that digital training and digital orientation allows the process to be way more efficient and for them to spread out their resources accordingly. It could also, for students, we have one of our schools that's implementing this, is their plan is to build some co-curricular content to support their students in these mentoring relationships, right? So how to become a good mentee, you know, how to approach difficult conversations with your mentor. Small, bite-sized content that can be kind of completed on the fly. And then the badging on the platform allows for like markers for program success, right? So mentee of the month, you know, competency assessments around specific mentor-mentee skills. Really the opportunities with the content is dependent upon what type of curriculum or what type of resources you want your mentors and mentees to have access to. And then the last piece, and most important, is the mobile communications, right? So from their mobile device, they can access the content and communicate with both the mentor and the program manager or coach that is managing the program. So it's easy access for them on their phone, both through SMS messaging, which is a functionality on the platform, and direct messaging through their portfolio. Now, the last kind of the piece that I'll touch upon is just how it tracks engagement. So this is the staff side. This is the back end. So we all know like Salesforce and customer relationship management tools. We have one built in called our Sherpa tool. So this is built in for staff to track every communication, every activity that's done on the platform. So it's a way for you to see the interactions between mentors and mentees, push content to them, recommend personal goals, recommend apps, facilitate collaboration on the back end with different points of contacts at each organization, and then also just get a detailed snapshot of each user's engagement and overall experience throughout the lifecycle. So we'll take a look at that as well. What I want to do next is I want to go over the workflow. I want to take a pause here because I'm going a mile a minute. Is any questions so far? I mean, a lot will be answered when you see the actual tech, but any questions from the team?
You guys can also just type in your questions in the chat too, whenever you have them, and we can address them as we go.
Pretty clear so far on my end.
Awesome. And Smitha, just let me know if there's any questions typed in the chat. I'm kind of looking at the pres right now.
Right. I feel like we could divide that way, you and I. So,
yeah. And what I'll do now, so what I want to do is when we were at the mentoring conference in DC, we presented this workflow. It's just an example of an end-to-end workflow for one of our mentors. Now, what I want you to think about here is that this can also be applied to mentees. So think of your 19-year-old who are you're onboarding to the program and customizing this workflow for that group as well. The idea for us and how we're using it in Chattanooga is there is a very intentional life cycle that we've developed for mentors and how they create accounts and then how they get connected to each of those organizations before that match. So you'll notice that we've broken it up into these 4 stages. So as I walk through the technology, we're going to break it down into these stages of the life cycle all the way through the match and the communication with the mentee, but keeping in mind that at every single stage, you're able to track and engage with the mentor activity, as well as provide the training and resources throughout, which makes it more intentional, which makes it more, like we say, just-in-time content more meaningful when you're giving them the resources at the point that they need it. So the way that it starts and is, we talk about the marketing, but basically when mentors in Chattanooga are interested in becoming a mentor, they come to one site that was developed for this initiative. Through this site, they can proactively sign up to mentor. Now, this link can exist anywhere. So we have some, and you're seeing some of the onboarding steps right now. We have some programs that add this to their website. These are basic onboarding steps that gather information. This was customized to Mentor Chat. You can see they identify the type of organization that they want to work with. And then each of these organizations have a community within the platform. So identifying this information early allows Smitha to connect them to the community. And this is in a matter of seconds, right? I mean, they click log in and they've already created an account and begun this process. So once they've identified the organization, there's other information that United Way has added to kind of like capture who this mentor is. And then once it's completed, and you'll get to, I think the last question is if they speak Spanish. I believe so. Yes. So once they get to the end of this, they get dropped into their homepage. And this is what it looks like. And the idea here is that right at the moment of interest, you're already connecting them with a coach, somebody that they can reach out to and ask questions to, but also with the content necessary to onboard and orient them to the program. And again, all of this is customizable to whatever program you're working with. Now, the coach piece is, you'll notice that there are 2 coaches here. The way Chattanooga is using it is once the users identify the organization, there's a POC, let's say if it's for Boys and Girls Club, who works with the mentors who are interested in Boys and Girls Club, that gets added to that mentor's profile. That allows that organization to start their onboarding and screening process before they get to the match. Eventually, once that mentor has identified their purpose, kind of like who they want to mentor, they get added to those communities. The community piece it helps them engage to other users, other peer mentors who are part of that specific organization, and then also has access to that content. Now, when we talk about the content, we talk about small bite-sized learning apps, right? So an example is one of the leadership academies for their mentors developed an intro app just to kind of gauge the mentor's interest if it's the right fit. So this could be like their mission statement, success stories, curated resources that are related to that program. Once they go through that intro app and they've kind of confirmed that they want to be a part, they have a screening app. So basically think of this as like all the background checks, all the fingerprinting, all in one bite-sized app, step-by-step, that they can monitor the mentors going through. And then once they finish that app and they're ready to be connected, they get moved on to like the next step. All during that time, you notice like the coaches on the side, and Smitha's job is to support those mentors along with the POC and provide them with that learning content that they need at each stage. So let's say that they're going to be working with adolescents. Maybe there's an app that's built on child intelligences or working with teenagers that gets pushed to those mentors, or specific apps that the program has curated based on the training that they've developed over the years to make it digital, right? So this can be proactively added by the mentors or mentees, or can be recommended by that manager, by that coach that are walking them through the process. Eventually, when you get to the match, this is where it all comes to fruition. So the idea is you have think of that as like the screening community. Then you have a private community for the school that they've uploaded all of their students into. And when they create that match, that student immediately, so in this case, it's the mentor, immediately has access to the student's activity, to messaging, to the student's goals, and to others that are connected to that student. So basically, this is the view from the mentor side, and this would be the view from the mentee side. So the mentee has access to their mentor's activity, the messages that they have within that mentor, as well as a profile and portfolio of that person that they've been connected to. So this is just kind of like, if you can imagine, at a school, like we have one school that we're working with that has over 350 girls. Each of those girls have a staff mentor that's assigned to them and a workplace mentor that's assigned to them. And they see both of their mentors on their profile page with that coach who's a school counselor that's kind of managing the entire process. So another kind of added that portfolio is creating those badges that we talked about for both the mentors and mentees, just for kind of those small wins throughout the program, whether it's kind of a mentor awards, whether it's kind of competency-based, skill-based. The idea is you want these markers throughout the process to help increase engagement and retention, and to have them have those kind of gatekeeping functions to move to each stage of that mentoring process. The back end piece, and this is kind of where the program manager lives, and this is that CRM that exists on the back end. So imagine all of that activity, all of those logins, all the data that's provided by both mentors and mentees exist in one coaching tool that allows that manager to see the activity, engage with them, and know who could be falling through the cracks, who hasn't logged in a while, who hasn't been engaged, and provide that necessary outreach to both the mentor and the mentee. Each user in the platform has their detail view on this coaching tool, right? Which allows you to see what they're doing in the platform, allows you to make a recommendation to them, whether it be maybe a peer mentor who's going through a similar experience. It could be a new sub-community based on maybe geographic location, special interests, anything. But the idea here is that it's a proactive way to engage users throughout the program with those kind of recommendations that they can see on their phone, they can see when they log into the desktop. And then on the mentoring side, the mentor manager tool allows you to see each mentor in the platform, how many interactions they've had, all the data that's specific to the mentoring engagement. So they can see the number of mentees they have, the number of interactions, how many days it's been since the last contact. All of these columns of data are customized to the program and to the community. So whether you want to track specific mentee engagement, specific mentor activities, maybe progress through the learning content, and more importantly, everything's transparent. So that manager who's overseeing the program can see the communication, right, between mentor and mentee to quickly be able to revoke privileges if needed, but also just monitor kind of that qualitative piece of those interactions to then provide the qualitative reporting in the end. So this is just kind of like the mentor manager's way of going through it. I remember, Brad, you had mentioned in your email just wanting to know the limitations. So I kind of outlined the limitations of the tool in these kind of 4 bullet points. Number one is you could tell by the UI that it's really geared towards middle school and above. So elementary school children, we don't have any customers that use it with the elementary schools. We do have middle schools and high schools, but so we recommend it's middle school and above. The staff tools that you see, that Sherpa coaching tool, is only available on the desktop. The mobile app, our mobile app, is geared toward that communication and the communities and the learning apps and the mentors. So it does not have the coaching tools on the mobile experience. So who's ever managing the process would have to do that from the desktop. I think the most critical piece is that this is not a plug and play tool, right? It requires very intentional kind of like programming and planning to make this work. And that's why I added the piece about that robust lifecycle design. The way that we did it with Chattanooga is they created, each organization creates their life cycle and experience that then gets mapped into the platform, whether it be the specific touch points for mentors and mentees, the content, etc. But that intentionality is just critical for that long-term retention. So I'm going to stop there and catch my breath. I tried to go through that as quickly and efficiently as possible to get to the questions. So I'll just hit pause and answer any questions that anyone has.
Thanks, Luke. My question is just understanding the infrastructure that's needed from the individual program as well as a backbone agency to start this up and to manage it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that we did it with Chattanooga is Smitha's position we created basically because of that need. So Smitha's job is to manage those efforts across all of the organizations, but we created MOUs. So United Way on the back end created MOUs with all of the partner organizations outlining, the needs and requirements for them being involved in this effort, which all the way from establishing a point of contact to be managing their group of mentors, their group of mentees, building out the content for their program. So there was a demanding list of tasks that each of those organizations needed to do in order to be a part of the effort. But overall, you do need that kind of champion to manage this, right? You need somebody to kind of put in that role to help kind of, over the entire life cycle to help coordinate and kind of bring those organizations together in that one place. So that's why Smitha right now is that point person who is kind of screening each of the mentors that are coming through the program.
Is this just, so on the tech side, isn't an app, it's just available, it's just a website that is phone enabled?
Yes, so this
is, so how do you direct message and all that?
Yeah, so the way that it works is through your profile, through the mobile app or through the desktop, you can message the mentors and mentees that are assigned to you or that coach that it's assigned to you. So the communication tools work in two different ways. One is the actual messaging, right, which is like a basic messaging on any platform that can be done through the mobile device. The other is through SMS, and the SMS feature is actually really critical because it allows from the back end the coaches and the mentors and the managers to reach out to the student directly to their cell phone, right? So while they're able to use it, so think of it as like, I'm a counselor for those 300, we have a counselor for 300 girls at the school. She's assigned a third-party number on the platform that then can be used to text from the desktop, text each of the students directly to their SMS number. So we can set that up. We use Twilio, which is a third-party kind of like messaging, and we're actually adding voice as well. So it allows for that communication from the platform to each of the user's mobile device.
So do you download the mobile app, or how does the mobile app work?
Yeah, you download the mobile app. So right now it's the Fidelis LRM mobile app. And then once you've created an account, you sign in using your credentials, your user ID and your password, and it logs you in directly to what you see here, which is your homepage.
Okay, so it's built on the Fidelis platform. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah, so it's available on the App Store, on the Play Store, but it's just one app that once you've created your community ID and your password, you're able to log in through the app.
Got it. Okay, that explains it. All right.
So
Hi, this is Mary. So sorry. Oh, sorry. So just to clarify what you were just saying.
Yeah.
You're saying like the agency buys the app, and then like how much does, just thinking cost, how much does it cost for like a whole, what have you seen for a whole agency to get this app for, all their mentors, program managers, the whole thing?
Yeah, so basically the cost we do just per user per month, right? So it's $5 per user per month. So that's like a typical kind of SaaS per user per month cost. And then there's always, for implementation, we always add some consulting and training piece to that. So, and that just depends on the how big the effort is. And the reason we do that is because of the intentionality of that lifecycle design is so critical for the success of the program, that we've just seen it, because it's not just it's such a robust tool with so many different pieces. You know, it's just, it's not conducive to a successful implementation if we just hand out the users, you know, hand out the access and then, you know, just wipe our hands clean.
Right. So have you seen that most? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Mary. No, go ahead.
Have you seen that most people, like for instance, let's say we wanted to buy the app for our mentors and our students.
Yeah.
Then it's just like a monthly fee that you bill to that agency, and then you can turn it off. Like if I then said, hey, we need to get rid of these people. I mean, how, like, where is there support for that amount of detail, or is it much more like a traditional app where it's just they put it on their credit card on their phone and, you know?
No, it's basically, it's done through, so we develop a contract with that specific agency, right, based on the number of users, and then we just say, all right, we plan it out. So the statement of work is basically, what is the implementation effort, you know, the number of users that are targeted, you know, who are the staff members who are going to be managing those users, and we can do it just on a per user basis per month. And you can always, once we launch, you always can deactivate accounts, and you're never charged for deactivated accounts, right? So if you have 1,000 mentors that you onboard, and you see that 300 of them, you know, opted out of the program, you just deactivate their account, and you're not charged for them. So it makes it easy on the management side of it. The challenge is always the work, the bulk of the work is at the beginning as you're building out that design, right? Because you build out the experience end to end. Like, how are you going to onboard them? What are the touch points along the way, so that we can customize the data points in the system to track what it is you need to track, one, and to set up the permissions for your staff members and the necessary training for them to successfully manage, you know, that group of mentors or mentees, right? And the way that you can do it, and this is how United Way is using it. So United Way has their own, like I'm showing you here, United Way has their own community, but think of that as like the parent community. What you can do is, underneath that umbrella, you have unlimited amount of communities that you can create, that can be private, that can be apply to join underneath that overarching umbrella. So if you think of it, Mentor Chat may be the parent community, but there's a pop-up tent that's created for the Chattanooga Girls Leadership Academy. And that's where all the students are uploaded into that private community, right? That then mentors are filtered through once they're screened. So there's different ways that you can set it up based on your program and how you onboard mentors. But the idea is it just depends on your preferences.
Okay, cool.
So Goodwill could be the parent, and then Boys and Men of Color could join in, and Broad Opportunity Youth, and Mikasa, or whatever, you know,
Exactly, yeah. And you could even have, like, we have some, so the way United Way is using it is they even have their own, like, they have a private community for corporate partners and their like, you know, for funding programs, you know, all the investors, you know, that they have in a private community. They also have a private community for their staff to train their staff on the platform, right? You know, in terms of working with mentors or just kind of that professional development piece. So there's so many different ways that you can take it based on your organization's workflow and experience, right?
What has your
Sorry, go ahead.
What has your consulting ranged?
Usually it titrates down, so it's usually it ranges from, I would say, for large implementations between $5,000 to like down to maybe less than 1,000 a month. But it really just works. It's working with the budget of the organization and finding, you know, the type of consulting that is needed. So for us, it's just really just building that experience design. It's that lifecycle design is like the biggest effort, right? Is because that basically dictates everything that you're doing on the platform. It dictates the content that you need, the people that you need, etc. So it's really just working with your, we charge it at like $100 an hour, and most, I think the smaller organizations that we have do it for like $1,000 a month for their smaller implementations. But it's just the range is so large because we have like one client is a university system that has 47,000 users, and another client is a gap year program that has 100 users. So there's just ranging needs for that consulting piece.
Do you have like a PowerPoint or a video on the mobile experience?
Yes, I could probably, I can send that to everyone on the call. It's just a walkthrough. It's just a deck that walks through the different capabilities in the mobile app, for sure.
Great.
And Luke, I'm assuming this isn't an all or none. If an organization says, we just want to do the SMS communication, we don't want to worry about the recruitment, the screening on the app, right. Is that they can pick and choose and say, we don't want screening, we want the training. Is that possible?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we customize it to just the needs. Like some who already have their program implemented, let's say that you already have 500 mentors that are assigned to, 1,000 students. And we just onboard them and kick it off. Like if there's no need for the screening or the background check piece, then you basically can create just your live community and onboard all your mentors and mentees.
Great. And can you explain the difference between the coach and the program manager and kind of Smitha's role? Is there an overlap there, or are those different roles? I think I got a little confused on who's supporting the back end.
Yeah, for sure. So from here, let me show you from this side. So let me give you an example of just like a student profile. So you'll notice the coach is assigned. You determine who that coach is. But basically, the way you think about it is your coach is your paid staff member, right? That's the person who's responsible for the success of the program. And that's the person who's overseeing the interactions between mentors and mentees and the users that are on the platform. So that coach could be defined as like an advisor. It could be defined as a program manager. In this case, Smitha, the program manager, is that coach, right? So she is that coach that's assigned to every mentor on the platform. The way we've set it up is you have a secondary coaching track, what we call it, so that mentee or that mentor, if there's somebody else that needs to oversee them, maybe it's someone specific within that program or outside of that program, we have the capability of assigning a secondary coach, right, to guide them through the process. For example, like we have one program that's using that has mentors that are assigned that are volunteers, obviously, but then there's a career coach that's assigned to young college students. So that career coach might be assigned. You can use the term coach, we use fleetingly, but the idea is that can be anyone that you want to manage the activity that's on the platform.
Luke, can I also add to that?
Yeah, of course.
So Brad, maybe also just for you to know a little bit more context in that same coaching roles, et cetera, is that, so let's say, there's a group of people, they see an article in the newspaper and they want to be a mentor, but they're not sure where. Maybe they don't really know the agencies yet. So when they come into the system, they're just interested in mentoring in general. And so the part of what we're trying to do in the city is to say, okay, but who are you? What are your particular interests and needs and experiences? And like, based on that, what agency makes most sense for you, right? And at this point, we're still not sure that they're going to actually go through as being a mentor, right? We're just trying to streamline some things, especially for our agencies, to get them into the right place and to sort of think in like at a citywide level, what would be best. And so my role is to try to get them into the right agency. And so when they have a secondary coach who is that program manager from that partner agency, and all of our partner agencies are basically implementers. So my role in the United Way is to support all of our implementing agencies. And so that program manager doesn't actually start to interact with them until they're sure that they want to work with that agency, one, and two, have sort of gone through all the screening process, like, you know, the application process, the background check, everything that they've needed to do on the front end to then start communication, you know, either through interview or whatever it is with that agency. And at that point, they kind of get handed over. And when they're accepted by that agency, then that program manager or case manager from that organization then becomes their primary coach. And I'm not a coach at all for them at that point. Does that make sense, Brad? It's like the whole point of me in that role is trying to get all the people who are in the city who want to be a mentor into the right agency.
Well, I guess my question then is if we have, say, 5 agencies in Colorado that are interested in this, would we then need our own SMIDA, or would you be playing that role for us?
And I think it depends on.
I don't know,
yeah. You would definitely need, you could either do, there's 2 ways you could do it, Brad. I think one is if you want to build the accountability and ownership on the agency side, you can just have the agencies identify that coach, so the, you know, quote unquote coach or manager for each of their programs. And they can have their separate programs in their separate communities. Or if, you know, they are spread out too thin and they can't commit to that, then you hire one person to manage it across those programs. So it just depends on the resources you have and kind of like what those programs are willing to commit, you know, the time that those programs are willing to commit and the staffing.
And honestly, the scale as well.
Right.
Great. And would you say this, you know, a lot of our mentoring agencies use MentorCore, created by CivicCore. Yeah. Would you say this replaces that? And, you know, if so, could you also do surveys on this to do pre and post tests?
Yes. And so even though we're not an analytics platform by any means, you know, the learning relationship management platform is based around interactions, relationships, and kind of retention across the learning lifecycle. But that being said, the apps themselves are ways to connect users to those pre and post surveys in an efficient way. So for example, a lot of our programs embed those post and pre surveys into their learning content, whether it's into their introductory content, their screening app, or kind of like the whoever the POC is, when they develop, let's say, that survey in an app form, they can come here. So as a coach, just an example, is they build an app out for that post survey, and they select all of their mentors and then just recommend the app directly to them. And that allows them in a very quick way to complete the app and monitor their activity around that app. And apps can be moderated. So it's almost like if you know Blackboard, like your traditional learning management system, you can add a moderator to any of the learning content so that they can engage the users throughout that experience, whether it be a survey, whether it be, you know, a training process, etc.
Great. And does the app depend on humans catching any kind of misuse of language or inappropriate activity, or is there something built in that will also catch anything like that?
As of right now, it's the way it's built out is that coach or that community manager. So on one level, the coach sees all the activity, right? But they would have to catch it. There's nothing built into the code that would flag specific language, right? That would need to be kind of an improvement that we add to that. But it's billed transparently. So any comment, any post, any message, any text message is seen through this tool, right? You have access to all of that activity.
Great.
Have you thought about adding maybe like a red flag that would, if either the mentor or the mentee hit the red flag, then it would notify the coach?
That's a great question. We do have flag capability. So we've built in flags into the platform. There's two types of flags. One is the manual flags that you can raise on a specific student or a specific mentor that will always exist and show up here, kind of in this flags column over here on the right. But I think you're talking about more of the flags that are built into the system that are raised based on specific activity on the platform. And in that piece, we do have some custom flags around engagement, but we don't have any flags built around reading like language and then flagging specific language. So for example, we have flags related to, if a student wasn't contacted in a specific amount of time, if they haven't logged in 5 weeks, if they've, sent a message 3 weeks in a row. I mean, there's a plethora of different red and green flags, but in that case, we would have to build a custom flag around the language for that program, which would require an engineering effort.
And Luke, who do you see, what type of mentoring programs or initiatives are signing up and saying, this is amazing, this is really working well for us? Do you have any trends in those in the types of programs?
Yeah, so just to give you some context, so we initially started, this platform was built as a retention tool for universities, right? And also reintegrating military back into the workforce. And then eventually over time, so initially it was all kind of higher ed, military organizations that were using this to track students. When we moved into the United Way is the first time we've ever moved into the mentoring space. Even though we've always had a mentoring component, right, in the platform, the United Way is the first customer to really use this specifically for a mentoring lifecycle. And then the organizations that followed have been using it to, that are underneath that mentor chat umbrella, have been using it to screen their mentors. We have one use case, and that's the Chattanooga Girls Leadership Academy. That's our only use case currently that have uploaded their students, meaning they've created a life cycle and experience for their girls academy. And next, Smith, I think it's the boys academy opens in September.
That's
I believe.
correct.
And they'll be uploading their boys into the platform as well. So this is really new, Brad, in terms of it in the mentoring space for how it's being used. So that's why we don't have a lot of data yet, to be honest. We don't, because we're still tracking that Girls Leadership Academy and what they're doing currently.
Great, thanks. Well, I wonder, just for the rest of the group, if somebody is interested in pursuing this option, what is the best next step? Is it to reach out to you to set up a more detailed conversation, or how do people get onboarded?
Yeah, I think the next step was just email me directly and just let me know when we can sit and I can kind of like scope the use case, right? The program, the amount of users, et cetera. And then we can start developing kind of what would be that overall experience to then match whatever statement of work or next steps are needed.
Great. Thanks so much, Luke. Are there any other questions before?
So you will be able to send out this PowerPoint. That would be great.
Yeah, I'll share this one, and I'll also send out the one that I have that kind of goes over the mobile experience. And it's just screenshots of each of the capabilities that you have on through that mobile, through the mobile app.
Great. And then if people are interested in joining, I'd love to just, if you would copy me on those emails if you are interested, and because if there's a way for us to create an efficiency in the state, or especially with the coach and the back end material, I think that would be of interest to Mentor Colorado. And I'll send out this recording as well. But really wanted to thank Luke and Smitha for setting this up and sharing this information with us. I think it's exciting to see where mentoring can go.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure.
Awesome. It's great to meet everybody.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll have you both down for Comic-Con next year.
Ooh,
No,
that sounds really fun.
I want to have coffee with Darth Vader, man. That's
My guess is we could go out